They stay up there.
No, you don't.
I do so. I have to write it all down. In fact, I've
got my room assignments.
Oh, you do?
Good to see you, Dave. Welcome back. Yeah, thank you so much for the use of
You know,
the car.
they can all change them if they want. I mean, yeah, we don't worry about it. We're not, nothing is for sure. Everything's okay. So go. I didn't get it all together yet. I'm on my way, though. I really am. Maybe tomorrow I'll have it together.
My bad side.
Oh, yeah.
You boys, boys.
Here he comes, straining himself.
How's it getting you?
Popcorn, that doesn't look very heavy.
It's not. I don't think we need that relation. I rented all this stuff. And here is the my.
Now, don't take a picture of it. Give me a break.
No way. This is all going to be recorded forever.
You're an idiot.
John Christopher.
Forever.
Like Dennis Barrett and Howard are not coming.
Oh, just my bad side now, Janet.
I see you're wearing shorts to go along with the flag.
Well, I didn't think of
Unfortunately, your shirt, however, is the wrong color.
I'll break out my Ralph Lauren here.
What?
Yeah.
Really? That's great.
Look at this. How come you don't have orange in your jersey there?
I don't know. I didn't do this on purpose.
When you step back, don't step in the butt. We don't want to push you into faith and be glory and
How are you, huh? DJ, you proud of me now?
I just missed it.
Party's getting rough and it hasn't even started.
Well, we're going up, guys, okay?
Oh, who's this? And what's your name? Huh? What's your name?
Tell your name.
Kristen.
Christian. And who's
Stop
this?
there, will you?
Elise.
Elise? And everybody has red on.
These are the milligrams.
Hi. I'm Howard. I know that. How are you? Good to see you. This is John Whitney. James Whitney. Oh, good-looking guy. He's a good baby. Hi, lady. Look at the storm come over the mountains here.
Oh, she's hanging on the back seat like this. Look at that. Pull it, man. We're way down the other side. I'm fine. How are you? It's been ages. That's what's like fun.
Where's the old man there?
And then he's yelling, dumb back 10 days ago. I did the same.
We were next to your game.
Oh, thank you.
So just, I mean, if you're here, what's the half the battle, right?
You know, it's hard to walk on these days. I know.
Here, let me take you.
Well,
Hey, Ann, how are you doing? All right. This is down the street with your parents. We're not down the street, it's like those office.
Say something profound now.
Right in there, right? Our office is back in there.
these are John. I guess I'm holding up that
Say something profound. You're on candid camera.
MIP, most important person.
Yes.
You are indeed.
All right. Let me help.
All right.
Believe it or not, he's
Yeah.
You bet he is.
Oh, okay, so one go hand in hand with another, so it's not like you're having to just pick up and start over again. So you go to Metro now in the summer, so you're not having to commute back and forth then during the winter.
But if they were here, it's like first year we got you better not have
Look at that mountain over there. It's gorgeous. I brought bats and balls and I brought my daughter said we might
In Raytown or Kansas City?
one night died. What was
You got the position. Now look up and show me the storm in the mountain. See the snow over there, Matt? Tomorrow we're going to take you up and get a snowball for you.
Tim and Bob again. Didn't take 6 times. Okay. Who is this coming? Thank you.
Let me bring some over to you. It's real good.
Oh, wait, use dirt.
I'm Russell. I'm Russell chewing on a finger. Russell DeBoot. Can you smile? Smile for the camera. Get behind her lamp.
What did you do? Huh? What do we have to get? Ed Marie.
There's
Mom. Only one thing.
You're just covered with drool. Hi, look up there. There she is. Peekaboo. You're not going to smile now. Peekaboo. Hey, just a second.
So please join me in saying grace with me. That's my mother-in-law. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Bless us, O Lord.
From now on. But it sure was fun getting it together. It's been wonderful. Janice.
You'll be able to see it. You'll be able to see what you look like.
I know what I look like. Anyway, it's been great. I appreciate what everybody's done. I got a sheet, and everybody that's staying here has to put their name and their address. No, just your name and where you're from. Please do that tonight, because I have to turn it in. If you're staying here or at the annex, write your name down.
Do we get a prize if you draw our name? No.
Yes, it is. No, it isn't. I don't. They want me to say something. They gave me this mic when my wife wasn't around. That was a smart thing to do.
People over here. I thought I remember
Why don't you give this mic to Dolores? She's the one that's talking. I give her the mic and then we can hear what... I'm kidding, Dolores. I've had some wild experiences with this crowd, which I'll tell you about as this weekend goes along, but I'd like to just comment on one right now, if I may, because we're in that general area. You know, before I ever became completely involved with my lovely wife,
Marty's going to turn it up.
with my lovely wife, we became...
I heard that on television.
You did? Before we became engaged, I was at Pensacola, Florida, and I was broke because one Howard Brown made it a point to steal all my soap. But I finally managed through, and Beverly made the mistake of accepting me. And the word went out to check this guy out. First of all, he was a Vermont Republican, and no one, Republican family, could join the Barrett clan. The second thing that went out was the fact that they knew nothing about this area, and besides, it wasn't Irish, it was French. So I just want to mention something here, how the Barrett family operated. I was overseas, and somehow or other the word got back to Madeline and Jim Coleman that my youngest brother had joined the service and been assigned to Lowry. And you know, the guy started writing me, never wrote me before, but he started writing me and he said, hey, you better get hitched up with that gal because it's a tremendous family. They have me over every time I'm off duty. They serve me dinner. They treat me royally. It's a wonderful family to be connected with. Now, these are just the relatives. But so the real family must be terrific. So I just want to mention that's how I, the parent family, got involved with the Barretts. I'll tell you more about other members of the Barrett family as the weekend goes along.
You never paid me for the marriage license.
Don't intend to either. Ryan, or the baby brother of Maggie and Kathy. The spoiled brat, affectionately known by my wife, and that nerd known by my son. So now you know who I am. Very happy to be here. Marty O'Fallon has wanted me to mention that for any of your needs as far as an attorney is concerned, his cards are placed right over here. Dave Millick has informed me he's got a special. Dave and his son John have a special on the term insurance in case you want to insure yourself. I've already mentioned the trash bags bill. It's $10 you can leave on my desk. That's about all I have to say. I'll be eyeing everybody later on, and we'll come up with some other things. Who wants to speak next?
Janet does.
Janet's the girl with the camera, right? I know she is.
That'd be a great thing to do.
Well, there is one thing that I think all of us should do, and that is to thank Maggie and Kathy for all of the work that they have put into making this reunion a success.
Mother. He's not going to get up, so I am, Mother. And I just wanted to say that Barrett Ryan will host the next reunion at his place in the Ozarks. And I think 1995.
It's sitting out in front. Did you see it okay? They're ready to go. And then lunch is also the same. Make your own sandwiches and so forth. And then tomorrow night is you're on your own for dinner. And the skits at 5 and the pictures are at 6. And we have cookbooks for everyone that we'll be handing out tomorrow. And then I have a few typo errors I need to correct tonight. Downstairs, right? At the pavilion. Okay.
Where's that? We have a grill. White steaks, all good.
Where is it? Where is that phone?
Oh, you push it and let go. Okay, it's still on now. I think it should be.
How do I turn it
See a
off?
red light? Yeah. Okay, turn it off.
I'm having her on TV. You want to say a few words?
You're going to take him out. Yes, you take
Yeah, we're live from New York.
absolutely live. You'll see yourself on television. Why don't you sit?
I'm the #1 actress, huh?
Go on, sing for us.
Oh, cut it out.
Well, yeah, they're similar. Well, the camp robbers are actually what they call like a gray jay, but these are real closely related to them.
Hey, guys.
Oh, dear.
Catherine, get in there. They're called camp robbers, and they just...
Did the rest of them go up this way?
I think they probably went up the trail, yeah. Looking for a handout.
Yeah.
Is that a pretty,
Well, the first lake's not too bad. I think up towards the second or third lake, there's a couple steep lakes.
Background. Wait, our lady's taking pictures.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, you all. Come on, say something.
They're a very cautious bird. Real hard to get close to.
pretty color.
I don't need the sweets. I need the raisins for medicinal purposes.
Stellar's cherry, raisins.
Whew.
The athletes complaining.
They wouldn't let my dad come.
9.
How about you? I was thinking about his
8. 5 for meditation.
Hey, let's see you crawl up.
Oh, really? You're not kidding. Quick.
And we see how fresh they are.
Really?
Like they just started the hike.
Not even out of breath.
Really?
Is that a sun camera? Something like that. Got our map out.
We walk through.
Way on the side. Way on the other side, Megan.
This is it, Kathy.
I got your message. I'll sit and enjoy this one.
For how long?
Oh, boy.
No, we won't get lost. And you all will be hiking
I'm coming.
back.
I'll be up there around midnight.
I don't know if this is another family of ducks or the same one.
What is this? Turning back already?
Watch out. Where's your guy?
Hello.
Hello. What a pleasant surprise to see you up here.
Hi. Hello.
Oh, it's the Channel 7 News.
Big one.
Yes.
Big one.
Yes, may we interview you? And how was the hike up there?
Piece of cake. Piece of cake.
It was
Like custom as I am.
Oh, we can get his knees again. We can get
Look
his
out,
knees
look
again.
out.
Here we go. Groundhog on the rock. We'll hardly be able to see it on the movie. He's moving.
What happened to him?
They missed that turn off.
The first turn?
Are still up there. I thought they were down here, but they're up
Okay,
there.
well, take them down there and walk them around Bear Lake or something.
Yeah, around the, that's a pretty view down there.
If you run into John and then tell them that we have Christians. We're not sure they know we have Christians.
Are you going up
Well, I might go up to the next lake and that's it.
by yourself?
That's a neat shirt.
Yeah, there's a bee in there. Isn't it?
Show me how to do it and I'll take your picture on it. I almost like a babbling stream better than a lake.
Yes, I do too. As a matter of fact,
They'll self-destruct.
Tie up to a tree.
Right here, Dad.
You are bad.
Yeah, he drag us out here and say, come look at the deer. We come out and throw a water balloon.
Help bring it back.
That does come get out of the way. And did you see it kind of do this? I was going, I'm not even going to move.
Oh, that was great.
Let's go, Jonathan. I'm already too late. One more Ryan.
That's two.
Nice one, Ryan. All right.
Honk your horn.
No, I won't.
Coming up on Eagle Cabin. You can go the outer route if you want to.
Hello? Are you coming up?
Oh, you just got your head on film.
Director didn't go over the blocking with us. What? He didn't go over the blocking with us. Everybody take their seats. Everybody take their seats. Anybody in the living room that ought to come in? Grace? All right, Marty, come aboard. Fun, everyone. This is going to be a great event. All you kids are going to have to be a little quiet for a while. What we have here is a skit by two titles. It's the technical title is called Limburger Cheese and No Baloney. But it might also have been called What's a Reunion All About? About a year ago, when we became serious about having this reunion, Kathy and Maggie and I talked on the phone, and I talked to my boys, and the question arose, hey Dad, what's a reunion all about? And it's kind of a good question. If we were to ask that question of each of you tonight, we'd get different answers. Somebody would say, well, a reunion is held so that the old wind passers can gas about old times. And someone else would say, well, the purpose of a reunion is to reunite the family and to get acquainted with the members of the family they haven't met, like the little ones. And someone else would say, well, the purpose of a reunion is to have a good time. And everybody would be correct. That's what a reunion is about. But it's not enough. The real purpose of a reunion, and the reason why so many of us spend a lot of money to come from the West Coast and the East Coast and the Midwest, is in order that the family can reunite around the values it stands for. Values it stands for: honor, integrity, fidelity, and faith. Honor, integrity, fidelity, and faith. That's what the family stands for. But it would get a little heavy if we had a lecture about that. So what we decided to do was have a family skip. And this skip would serve three purposes. It would inform about family life in Kansas City, Missouri, where some of us grew up. It would instruct about the message of faith and fidelity. And it would entertain. So the purpose of this skit is really to entertain you. Now, in order for a skit to be authentic, someone who writes it has got to have some information about what took place. And if I were the author, which I was, then I had to relate in the skit things that I knew about personally. So this skit takes place in Kansas City in early 1940. Now I have to tell you a little bit about the family so you can appreciate what this skit is all about. In Kansas City, we're picking the Ryan's house. We could have picked any other house. We could have picked Jim Coleman instead of Jim Ryan, or Howard Brown Sr. instead of Jim Ryan, or Grover Crowley, or Aunt Madeline instead of Aunt Sis, and so on. The reasons that we selected the Ryans were the following. In the early spring of 1940, I was about to be graduated from college, and upon graduation, I would be faced with the usual thing that young men face, and that is jobs. How do you get a job? And Uncle Jim, all the Jims and Grovers were helpful in that respect. But the other thing was the war. The war was in full swing in Europe, and Hitler was making great strides. And only one of the uncles had any great experience in military affairs, and that was Jim Ryan. He'd been in the Navy during World War I, cruised back and forth across the Atlantic, and it was there that he learned the delicacies of Roquefort cheese and Limburger cheese, which they're not props, they're real here. But in addition to, and therefore we consider Jim Ryan the ultimate authority on war and international affairs. But there was one other thing. In addition to jobs, in addition to the war, whether to volunteer for the draft or volunteer for service, which was, facing me urgently, the other ubiquitous topic before any young man aged 20 was girls. And since Jim had been a bachelor for 39 years before he met Josephine, we considered him the oracle on women. Now, whether he was or not, something else, but I think he liked the role. So, at any rate, it developed that after Sis and Jim were married, that once every month or two, she would turn the house over to Jim, and he would hold court in the breakfast room, as it were. And he would engage in his delicacy of Roquefort cheese and Limburger cheese and cigars and beer, any one of which would, of course, been quite fragrant, but the combination drove Sis and Margaret Mary and Kathleen and young Barrett, who was a baby then, drove them out of the house. So this skit takes place against that background, and I think you'll find it enjoyable. Now the time is, March, April 1940. The war is on in Europe. I'm about to get out of Rockhurst, hopefully, one day soon. And the topics are the three things on a young man's mind: jobs, war, women. And here we are. The scene opens with Sis, who's just about to make her exit, and she now comes on. She's the first in the program. And so I introduce you to the play, to the skit, Limburger cheese and no bologna.
Welcome again, Howard, to your Uncle Jim's bi-monthly cheese and cracker session. Your mother, Irene, is under the impression that these consultations take place in an ice cream social environment.
She's beginning to suspect. When I come home, she takes one whiff and then dispatches me to sleeping in the porch to air out.
That's what we're about to do. Any one source, the cigars, the cheese, or the beer would be enough. But the combination is an environmental disaster. One day there may be an agency of the federal government to protect against such intrusions. Meanwhile, Margaret Mary, Kathleen, Barrett, and I will visit my parents. Over the years, we have found that such bi-monthly visitations not only are in the interests of our health, but are conducive to domestic harmony. Meanwhile, if you feel yourself getting a little green about the gills, you might try wearing Jim's old World War I gas mask. It's upstairs in the closet.
I didn't know the Navy needed gas masks.
It's a function of the Navy, my boy. Or it's a function of the diet of the Navy. After 3 weeks at sea,
That'll do, Jim. We'll see you later. So long for now.
You know, Howard, there goes a good woman. There's 2 beautiful daughters I've got, and I sure hope someday when they get married, they'll pick a man as successful as I am. God forbid the guy comes from Germany or Eastern Europe, or I hope not an Irishman. That would be the worst of all. But she is a real beautiful woman, and with impeccable taste in all other departments. She can't appreciate the delicate flavor of Limburger and Roquefort cheese.
Well, maybe it's not a matter of taste, but of survival. After all, there's only one gas mask in the house.
Now, don't be disloyal to your gender. We men have to stick together. We're no match for the women.
By the way, Uncle Jim, where did you acquire your taste for Limburger and Roquefort cheeses?
Why, in Amsterdam during the war.
Is that all there was to eat?
It's better than beans.
I thought that when Navy men went ashore, food was not the foremost on their minds. Which brings me to the point. Last time we met, we talked about job opportunities. You promised me that tonight we'd talk about women. And I'd sort of like to know...
Howard, about the war.
Women in war. I don't get the connection.
Howard, your inexperience is frightening. Listen, with all its other evils, war disrupts social patterns. In most of the parts of the world that servicemen frequent, average women outnumber the wholesome.
Run that by me again?
In every bar, in every port, you'll find more bad women than good.
Well, how do you tell them apart?
Why, by their eyes.
By their eyes? Don't you have to get up pretty close to tell?
Listen, Howard, if it comes to that, you better write me. Meanwhile, get back to your ship.
What makes you think I'll be aboard ship?
What? You wouldn't consider the Army, would you? All they do in the Army is peel potatoes and dig trenches. You think Limburger smells. In the Navy, they feed you like princesses. Your paycheck goes to the bank, and the waves rock you to sleep at night.
Well, how do you sleep with all those torpedoes in your area?
Don't worry about it. I'll drop Count Von Luckner a note.
Hasn't he retired by now?
He probably has, but he's still the patron saint of German U-boat commanders.
Well, how are we going to get word to the U-boat commander to grant us sanctuary?
Paste a shamrock in your porthole.
Shamrock? What good will that do?
Look, the Germans may be our erstwhile enemy, but they're not dumb. They're going to have their hands full with the Yanks. The last thing they want to do is get the Irishman at them.
Actually, Uncle Jim, I've been thinking about flying.
Flying, forget it.
What have you got against flying?
I'm not against flying, Howard. I can't stand the mess. You know that. In the Navy, you're either buried at sea or shipped home in one piece. But flying, that can get messy. By the way, what's your dad think about this flying business anyway?
Well, to tell you the truth, I really haven't had a chance to discuss it with him. He's in New York on business. First trip to the big city, you know.
Going to the big city, huh? Well, we better telephone him right away.
Are you that worried about my flying?
I'm not worried. I'm worried about your father. First time in the big city. All sorts of evil could befall him. After all, he wasn't in the Navy, you know.
Well, what could you do for him?
Well, hell, I'll call the precinct captain. Where he's staying.
I didn't know you knew a precinct captain in the New York City Police Department.
Well, I don't actually, Howard, but there's bound to be a Ryan who's a precinct captain in New York.
Well, before you call, I should mention that I have written my father about flying. And when he telephoned my mother, he said he'd discuss it with me upon his return. But in the meantime, I should investigate naval aviation.
God, naval aviation? The Navy? Why didn't you say so? They'll no doubt give you superior training to the Army Air Corps and a commission to boot.
What's so important about a commission?
Well, quite frankly, you know, officers aren't as smart as enlisted men. We all know that. But the pay is better, and women like the gold. Braid, that is.
Well, commission or no commission, there is a hitch. In return for the expensive flight training, the Navy requires a commitment of 3 years service, war or no war. Do you really believe the United States will become involved?
It's inevitable.
Why inevitable?
Well, we have more at stake, so it's really our war.
Our war? We haven't even fired a shot yet. And what about the British and French? Isn't it their war too?
Now listen, Howard, carefully. In the first place, the British and French can't cut it by themselves. They don't have the resources, and they were caught frightfully unprepared. The French are still on horseback and are deluding themselves about the impregnability of the Maginot Line. Why, Hitler's Stukas and junkers will hop over the concrete sewer pipes like grasshoppers in Kansas. As for the British, well, you know when I think about the British, they sat around in their clubs looking at their old school ties until it was too late.
You couldn't be exaggerating a little, could you? Churchill said it was their finest hour.
Well, I am exaggerating slightly. It is their finest hour. You know, I admire their pluck, but they can't finish it by themselves. And as I said, we have more at stake. Let me put it to you bluntly, Howard. I've been rather successful as a businessman, no doubt. I make good money, and your uncles and your dad are making good incomes. We own our own homes, we marry beautiful women, we drive good automobiles, and we're educating our children in excellent schools. Your 4 years at Rockhurst didn't come cheap. But I couldn't have done all that in England. I wouldn't have had the opportunity. You know, there's still an inordinate emphasis on class and bloodlines.
Well, isn't all that changing?
Yes, gradually, and our war may accelerate it.
Well, I heard President Roosevelt say the other day that we have a common heritage, a common tongue.
That's true as far as it goes, but it doesn't go for enough. It's not so much the language, which, by the way, they speak more eloquently than we do. It's what is meant by the words.
Meaning?
Values.
Values?
Yes, values, principles, and ideals. And allegiances.
Allegiances?
Sure. Don't forget, the Revolutionary War was all about allegiance to the crown instead of to our individual liberty. Remember, too, that my parents and your grandparents left the country they loved so dearly because they didn't enjoy the freedom of opportunity they could enjoy here. Ask your aunt. Just before we were married, Josephine visited Ireland. Half a century had elapsed since Denny Barrett escaped from the Black and Tans, and still the stone walls enclosing piteously small farms stood as grim reminders of economic oppression.
Well, you spoke of values and ideals. Aren't the ideals and values of the French and British the same as ours?
I'd like to think so, but it isn't necessary to be specific. You know, I travel out west a good deal. It can hardly be said that my customers in Colorado, Idaho, Wyoming, and Montana had a drop of blue blood in their veins. But there's a lot of red blood in them. Out there, a man's word means everything. You know, here in Kansas City, when I either buy or sell something from Ross Manufacturing, the agreement has to be spelled out in writing, witnessed or notarized, and prepared in triplicate. Out there, an agreement is sealed by a handshake. We ship, he pays, and that's that. Their code of ethics, their values, boil down to 3 tenets. The integrity of man's word, respect for the honor and virtue of women, and the inviolate right to worship God in accordance with one's own dictates. They don't have posses or necktie parties anymore. But the man that violates that code, well, there are a few places in the world where the basic code is revered quite as much as in the United States. It is a source of strength of our nation, and yet it is so fragile, so hard won, so easily lost. That is why I say it is our war, that we have more at stake than anyone.
You look out of breath, Howard. Looks like I returned in the nick of time.
Well, I'm out of breath, but not because of the fumes.
Well, be careful. We had a tragic event here recently. We lost our Cocker Spaniel.
You did? How did that happen?
It expired.
Car accident?
Gas.
Furnace?
No. Cheese.
Well, it's about time I headed for home, but before I go, I wonder, Uncle Jim, if you could sum up your advice about women.
Howard, let me tell you a few of my experiences. You know, in World War I, when they started flying the planes, they used to send the young men down to Pensacola, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
I heard this story from a number of people down there, especially the officers. You've got to look out for the women down there. I mean, there are some women that have you'd rate them. They used to rate them as 4.0s, 3.8s, 3.0s, etc. And especially some of the Cajun women down there. If their name started with B, like a Burl, you really had to watch out for them.
Sure.
So you just never know.
Could you actually ever meet one?
Well, sometimes you do. You take them out, you fix your friends up with them, and they don't believe what you say about them, and you never can tell.
Sure.
And the other thing I got to remind you about, Howard, is anytime you're in the Navy and you're an officer, you're going to probably have to scrounge for yourself. They don't give you enough soap, enough toothpaste. For instance, somebody steals your soap, you go steal somebody else's soap. And for God's sakes, don't write a note down that says, I stole your soap, pay you back tomorrow.
Who would be stupid enough to do that?
Well, considering your inexperience, my advice to you would be stay in your airplane and refuel in the air.
All right, well, what about What about Saturday nights? Could you make an exception?
Of course, for confession, anytime. You know, Saturday especially.
You sound like my grandfather Barrett.
Well, let me tell you about your grandfather Barrett. When the chips were down, we all turned to DJ.
Well, I can tell you, his counsel's a simple one. Get to the sacraments, me boy. Get to the sacraments.
And what else, Howard?
Give them hell.
Right.
That's the end.
Right there. In New York, the number to call is 1-800-236-7950.
We'll be in your city soon.
We'll be in Schenectady next week.
Send it to you.
Sold my soap?
No, somebody does. Go buy more.
You're right.
That's all right.
Special treat for you. We requested that everyone send us a recipe, and which most of the women did, and we really appreciate it. And judging from all the recipes we got, I can tell you all loved it.
That was really good.
So, just out of curiosity, how many people went on a diet before they came?
Yeah, I saw the other
I bet there's a lot. How many people reached their goal? None, right? So we made some cookbooks up for you to continue on with your recipe cooking. There's quite a few typo errors. I'm sorry, this is not professional. It was done between lunch hour and dinner hour. And we have enough, one for each cook in the family, or if you're not married, one for each cook in the house. So please help yourself to one. Well, and just come on up and pick one out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mom. That's your mom. Honey, bring that one.
I do this honor, and that would be a 38 automatic involved in steel. That would be an apartment or a hotel.
I don't remember that one.
That was part of the story too. I didn't remember that part.
I'm going to recheck my source.
What apartment?
Mr. Straight.
I thought he was going to say, which apartment? Which
It wasn't 30, it was a Luger. Girl, Woody Stringer and traveled to New Orleans. Girl Rabbit would have her friends, but we all loved her.
The deal was the 4.0.
She was 4.0.
Nobody believed me. That was the deal. Right? Because you took her up to Rockland's College.
No. That was Meredith Bruns. But Barrett Rabbit was New Orleans. She was strictly a beautiful French Louisiana girl.
Part of the story was how everybody brags about how they're dating 4.0s. Nobody believed it. We had to go boom. So I had to give her a call and come down with some girlfriends of hers and set them up.
Well, Steve, what do you need?
Who's going to play? Where's Beverly?
Remember that voice anymore?
Hey, go ahead, Catherine. Okay. We'll hide, and then we'll go.
It's hard to
get all the information that you absolutely need from run there.
Pass out the song. Let's hear it from Molly O'Fallon.
There's some graphic. There's a
Everybody, come on.
God bless America, my home sweet home.
We want new notes.
That got in there swole.
Barrett family, come on down. How you doing? I'm Gary, and this is Adam. Welcome to YMCA of the Rockies. I hope you're enjoying Mountainside. Okay, first of all, before we all get started, Margaret planned this whole thing, I understand. Is that right? Maggie, did you officially give Maggie a great big hand? All right, now Maggie, you have to do an Irish jig for us. No, we'll let you off. Also, to thank, first of all, Maggie, did Jim help you with all this?
No, Kathy.
Or Dave?
Kathy. Kathy helped me.
Kathy helped you?
My sister.
Kathy's your sister. Okay, well, you're going to have to share the print, too. Younger sister. Because from the Y and from us, we give you one print. Okay? You might want to give that to Madeline, since she's the eldest, whatever you want to do. But anyway, we're going to give you a print for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Now you can share it in half. You keep the half you're in, and then. Okay. All right, Madeline. Where are you, Madeline?
Right there, get finished.
Boy, you're good. How did you know I was going to put you there?
Where she always goes.
All right, you're good. Now, Madeline, Dolores is your daughter.
Right.
Okay, and Bill is your son. Do you like him? Do you like him? Is he good? You better be a little more definitive, Madeline. Yeah. Say yeah. All right, Bill and Madeline are in
You get
Bill
me
and
out of that
Dolores.
camera every time.
Get in there with them. Bill and Dolores, come on down. Get in there. Now, listen, all of you younger folks, the young adults, give me attention. Anybody that doesn't have much trouble, there's going to be some rocks we're going to put you on up in here, okay? So that's to make it more artistic. Not autistic, artistic.
Oh my God, it's
Okay, let's get Bill and Dolores. Maggie, you get in, snuggle in next to Bill and bring Dave with you.
Come on, David.
Okay. I understand we have Aunt Sis that just. I understand we have Aunt Sis that was just in a play.
No.
Where's Aunt Sis? Kathy? Are you Aunt Sis?
If he can
Kathy, you
get her
don't look
here.
old enough to be Aunt Sis. Hey, where's your boyfriend? Where's your boyfriend, Kathy? Kathy, where's your boyfriend? She's looking, boy. Oh, okay. You gotta watch those Irish women. They got them room for them eyes. All right. And then we have a namesake, man. Barrett?
Like Jim Ryan?
Barrett? Where's Barrett?
Right here, sir.
Come on. God, I love it when somebody wears red. God love you. You look good.
39 years old. What do you want?
Okay. We're going to have some orders for you kids with hats. We're not going to wear any hats. Okay? They're going to want your hats on.
Matthew.
They're pretty. Now what we can do is we can, just for you guys, we'll take one with the hat, but then everything else without. How's that sound? That gives a little bit of democracy to the whole thing, okay? Did Jim Ryan come out there?
Matthew.
Okay.
I got 5 names.
Now wait a minute, don't anybody tell me hustle it up when we were late, okay? Now Howard and Janet. Howard, you wrote the play, I understand.
Yep.
Okay, Howard and Janet. On this end over here, so we don't have two reds together. Okay, Beverly. Okay, now where, I lost Beverly. Who am I working with? Howard and Janet?
Beverly down here.
Howard and Janet. Now where is Howard and Janet?
Right here.
Okay.
They take a while
All
to
right.
get here. Come on.
And then where's Beverly and Claude?
Right here, right
Okay. All right. Mary, you look good. Catherine and Jim.
I'll give you a hand.
Well, actually,
Oh, they did not.
No, they're late. Where are they?
Catherine and Jim are gone. Okay, we'll cross them off the list then. Did Catherine and Jim leave?
Jim.
No.
I understood Catherine sing.
Yes.
Jim?
Here's Jim.
I last saw her up there on the mountain.
All right, Catherine, you better get in here and put her on his ear. All
He
right.
asked me all.
Now, Jim,
Tell
you
me
can
the
sit down
meeting
next
thing.
to her.
He asked me.
Now, Catherine said she won't be jealous. Everybody, this is magic of illusion. Make it look like you like each other. Get in a little closer.
Swing down here. Let me sit here. No, you swing down there. I'll show you why.
Sit down there.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, you go ahead and hold the baby.
In between you boys.
Yeah. That's it. Claude, you sit on the end, so if you fall.
Hurry up,
Irish,
get in there.
back by the trees.
Yeah, way behind the trees. That's got to be the biggest troublemaker. What's his name?
That's right. That's
Barrett.
That's honest. That's honest, Jim.
No wonder you can say all these nasty things and get by with it, Barrett.
Baby brother. How much is this deal?
Total's $1 million, but Maggie took care of it. Don't worry about it. So, everybody, listen. Give me your attention. The way we do this is there's no charge for us coming up here, and then tomorrow.
Everyone back there needs to come.
Okay, here we come, kid.
Thank you for still getting a picture taken.
Just shuffle
We want the first and second generation.
Well, Madeline's the first and the
Right. We want her in the center and all of it. Fill the bench up, Howie, and then you stand.
Score, Lucky! Score! Would you sit down? You can put it
Jim Muller.
Yay!
Steel Farrell.
Yay! Maggie asked if it's anybody else.
Nat Brown.
Katie Barrett.
Vincent Brown. They won't have anybody else on this.
Katie Barrett was July. Katie Barrett.
Katie Barrett's birthday.
Oh, yeah, and Tommy Muller.
Tommy Muller. And we have a real special.
Wait a minute, one more. One more. Howard Brown.
Howard Brown. Have I missed
Gets the prize, linebacker at Rutgers High School in Kansas City, Missouri. Patrick!
Hey, Barrett. What'd you get him, a new car?
Here, wait a minute, Patrick, get the cake.
My son-in-law.
Oh, you got it. What?
Bill. Happy birthday, Bill. And your mother-in-law.
Kept yelling about
Maybe a little older.
Hey.
got a bed. So we're in a good shape.
Matthew, cheers. Cheers. And you're at the holiday. Cheers, come on. It won't go back in the can. I don't think it won't go back in the can. Come here. You drink it.
Yeah, we're further down.
It's terribly hard to put it back in the can. It won't go back.
That's what you always know the holiday.
That's right.
Speedway. Please keep your eyes on Mary Michael Brown and his by Dave, but also a best you enjoy the lifestyle corrected famous in racing.
You'll remember that Mary Michael had trouble with this race last year. She ended up in the green in the middle. She has a pin in her left hip, but it does not seem to bother her.
The place in her head doesn't seem to bother her either. Because she's famous.
She does seem to be having trouble staying on that inside curve, Brad.
She's in number 2, though she just went by. Very close indeed, I might say.
She's in the yellow. Oh, and here is Amy coming in. She looks quite chilled.
She's distraught. She's a wreck. She's just rear-ended someone else, and I don't think we're pleased about that. Neither are the judges. They're calling off the track.
Oh, Mary Michael has come back. She did take that inside curve quite well. She did spin a little out, but she held tight. She made the turn, and she did advance.
She's advanced maybe on the track, but not on the line. Here she comes going around. Yeah, very wide. And maybe she's reckless. She's out of control. She's composed but reckless. We like to say, sayonara.
Sayonara, Mary Michael. That was not a good turn.
It's looking very trim indeed for Mary Michael, but she's ridden here before, done well in the past, and now
she is making it on the outside.
Very sorry state. It's a very sorry state indeed. Mono racing, because last time when last we spoke, she was composed, she was reflective about the times in the past. A little too so because she's not looking forward to the future, she's living in the past.
I think that pin must be bothering her now. The climate, it is very chilly. It's chilly out here tonight.
I think with the radio receptors that they have, with the cable television, the speaker, they're probably thinking of probably like she's here on the Billings Island as she's driving. But now, back on the race here. And here's the trophy they're giving away this year. They're bronzing this. And on the hood of a car, that would look very nice.
That was good driving, man. Good eye, good eye. Here's Vincent.
Vince, turn it around. Keep going.
There you go, buddy.
Get the action, get in the game, Vince. It's like a wounded duck. Heads up. It's like it's only filled with gas.
Stop right now.
Are they up? Mary, are they up? Kathy, get them up here so they...
They're up.
I am, and then I'm going to come cook. Yeah, but I'm coming back. Let's start that, okay? Okay. Gary, what do you want? Eggs or what? Bacon's okay.
Maggie, there's your egg. Right there, honey. What do you want? You want to grab it?
Pancakes, bacon and eggs.
Here's your bacon.
The juice is over here.
I know.
You know how to get it? Okay, they get you something there. Catherine Muller.
They serve me dinner, they treat me royally. It's a wonderful family thing. Now, these are just the relatives. So the real family must be terrific. So I just want to mention that's how the married family as the weekend goes along. You've never paid me for the married life. You're right.
And now I read this with Laura and Matthew.
Mention that any of your needs as far as the church is concerned is cards or what is let you on a special on the term insurance.
Yeah, here. Matt. Matthew, come here. Stay here.
This way, buddy.
You title bearers, I need to trip downstairs, right?
I'll go in front and get it.
Put it up there. Where is it up there?
Oh, it's on the other side.
Janet and Uncle Barrett.
Come on, Mom, take us. The football's right there. Mom's giving us money.
I got mine.
Okay.
I'm going in front of you, Janet.
No, that's quite all right.
You want to go? Where do you want to go?
I mean,
The airport. I'll be back.
Excuse me.
Who's going?
Carolyn and
Chris, we're gonna go on the water slide.
When? Tonight?
Later.
After the barbecue?
No, first we're gonna go kart, and then we're gonna come back and go on the water slide.
Okay,
Where are you taking us? When are we gonna go? We don't have any money.
You don't, I do.
All right, nice to see
goodbye.
you.
Nice to see you again.
Have a nice trip.
Justin, don't get it.
It's in the room upstairs. Yeah, bring it over here.
Hey, Vincent.
You seen Ryan?
Yes.
Rachel, have you eaten lunch yet?
Barrett O'Connor.
I think we're
Big water slide.
gonna
Where are you gonna go? The water slide. That's where you're going.
We're going to the big slide.
Oh, where's the water slide?
No, don't.
Oh, the hydro tube.
We're going on the
okay.
tube.
Whichever. Are they together? They're not at the same place?
No. The other side doesn't have any water.
Oh, okay. You don't want to go in there? Oh, yeah.
We're going on the tube, right?
They nap. They nap you.
I'm not going to the tube.
Bye.
They're leaving, Matt.
Matthew, you want to play catch? Want to play catch?
I'm not a Jedi brand. Janet entered.
Sergeant, throw it off.
I gotta get you.
You can't get out of this camp without getting a picture.
I'm waiting for it. Go, and then you take a two. You know where I live. You don't.
Oh!
Oh, okay. Here. Bye-bye.
Well, sorry.
Good one.
Mom?
Good one.
Mom.
Good shot.
Or whatever.
Good shot, Jeff.
Hey, now, down.
Nice one.
That's me. Hey, Matt, watch this. I'm going to show you something neat.
The other way, Lefty.
Right? Watch
Okay.
this.
Woo! He's left-handed. Anybody in your house left-handed?
Janet, I made extra.
gotta have somebody else.
We can make them after no, we can sing them without the floor. Where's that? No, wait, wait. Oh, I hear yes, okay. Okay. Sure is like a morning spring. To the Irish laughter, you can hear the angels sing. When Irish eyes are happy, all the world's bright and gay. And Irish eyes are smiling, sure to steal your heart away. Isn't that right? My wild Irish rose. That'll be the sweetest wild rose. We can start over on a higher key.
Everybody's got a fifth in their pocket now. Put it down for just a minute. Won't take very long now. Here's what I wanted to say. This morning when the priest at Mass talked about Sarah and then talked about Martha, I got to thinking that maybe we ought to say something tonight. You know, when we came into this lovely chalet 2 nights ago, there was above the mantel a sign which said, it's all their fault. Referring, Janet, we're off again. Our parents, you know, Aunt Maggie and Aunt Rose, we wouldn't be here today. So we ought to be grateful. And here's what I'd like to say. This morning when I came down, there was a team of girls in the kitchen preparing loads of bacon and eggs and pancake and so on. So I would like to propose a toast to the girls. Not any girls, but our girls.
Our girls.
Cheers.
Would you tell them they have to be down at the barbecue at 5:30, rain or shine?
What time do you have?
And there's a covered patio. It's fine.
All right, listen, one other thing. We have to be down at the barbecue at 5:30, rain or shine.
Dress warm. Dress warm.
Dress warmly. It's 5:15 now. So anybody that's going to drive, stay away from the bar.
Diana Ryle O'Flaherty, Ardford, Ardrahan, Kelly, County Kerry, Ireland, to Mr. Dan O'Connor, 2566 Titus Avenue, Omaha 11, Nebraska. The date is October 22nd, 1944, and we are in the midst of World War II. Assuming Diana is close in age to Dan O'Connor, she would have been about, 50? Yeah. At the time of her letter. When was your father born? He was born in about 1890? Grandpa Barrett.
My father?
Dan O'Connor.
Dan.
I got it. Here, Beverly, with glasses.
Okay.
1880.
1880.
Who are you talking
Okay.
Uncle Ben.
Dear Dan, your letter mailed August 16th got here a few days ago. I was very glad to hear from you and was not as surprised as you think. My daughter Joan, that got the letter from the postman, she was looking at it and reading out Fire Department, Nebraska, etc. Without ever taking it in my hand, I said, it is from Dan O'Connor. Now, I know you want a whole lot of news from me, but where to start with this bulletin is the trouble. I must first sympathize with you on the death of your wife. She is an awful loss to you now, when you could be so happy. Yes, I heard some years ago that you were getting to the top of the ladder. You deserve it all, but that is the reward for honest, faithful work. You may all cheer when you choose to. As I read this letter. We have heard John Thomas here every night. He's anxious to hear the news, but with all his money, he wouldn't invest in a wireless himself. We have John Thomas here. But many a yarn I have heard about yourself and Willie Harris. It seems that you were down in that cursed bog one Sunday minding crows from some crop. Willie was going off gallivanting. He saw your father and Willie. You were inside the ditch going off too. They figured your father would say, I see you, Dan, come back. And then you'd get your dressing later on, and you not there at all. John says, too, that you got it tough at Carol's. Old Jamesy was at fright and work and cold and half hungry in the road. You were told, call John Carroll in the morning. No use calling him, he was dead to the world. You had to pull him out in the floor. Oh, they were all hard nails dictators in their own homes, and Jamesy Dowling was the same. We had nothing to say, only do as we were told. I can tell you, Dan, times are changed. Farmers' children and workers' children are all the same now. They're well-dressed and well-fed and go off with their bicycles Sunday evenings and week evenings if anything offers. This is Sunday night. The only two I have at home are gone off dancing, and no wonder made of it. Of course, they have halls, not like an occasional raffle that we used to have at houses like Johnny and Mrs. Walsh's. And the fright of God in us to be home in good time and avoid the whip. I remember going to Listowel races, and Nora, your sister, and Bid Harris took an ass and car to Ordinary that night to meet me. They left the ass tied at a cottage at this side of the village and walked over. They met me. We made no delay, but came on for our carriage. But our mode of conveyance was stolen. Nora and Bid met John Garrett Ryle coming home and somebody else, and they picked out of them how they came to Ordinary. We had to walk around the road home, and facing Gurnet's Cross, there was our ass. Anyway, when I got in home, it was... When I got in home, it was 20 to 11. I wasn't asked what happened, only a grunt, and God direct you anyway. And I tormented enough. And if you remember John Ryle, the Lord have mercy on him, wasn't a very funny customer himself. Now, when they go to Listowel races, they remain for the night there at the dance. You didn't tell me your daughter's name or your two sons. God will take care of your boy in France. But no doubt you are upset and worrying. Let's dance. Yay! Sister Consolina told me of your visit. I loved her better than any of the Barrys. She's a great sort. As I write, John Thomas is here. He's as active as ever and full of business. So's Willie Harris. They know I heard from you, and Willie told me to ask you this, that, and the other thing. Some years ago, when we built the house here, Willie had gravel drawn. He would get a grant of 70 or 80 pounds. The house was never built. And Harris's is still the same long rigmarole of a thatched old house. No ambition, only remain in the same old rut. And he makes a nice bit of money, but he likes his pint. Jamesy Scanlon had a new house, and so has Davy Leary. Mick Mikey Griffin has all the farms around the place bought. Boo! He has Katie Driscoll's, Jimmy Dowling's of Larry Cross in the boggy land where John Murphy lived, and Crowley's Acre. And then his wife got some land from a Mary Munsell. At one time, didn't you know that Munsell? Weren't you telling me about the Munsells? Yeah. At one time, John Murph Dowling owned it. He had 6 sons and 1 daughter. Yay! Yay! Whoa! Now, I'm sorry, I don't understand this sentence. It says, Mick John Bug is dead. Yeah.
They used to have, they give them different names.
But Bug?
Yeah, they give them nicknames.
Oh, Mick John Bug. Oh, I thank you. He left no heir, but his wife has her nephew, Pat Denhan, there. John Sullivan isn't at Connors. With years, he's back at Corrigan's at Larrig. I saw yourself as late as I saw him. I often think of old times and the Moriartys and all the company. I never hear from any of them or didn't know they'd left Omaha. So when you get this, you must take up your pen and give me more definite news. Did Katie Moriarty go to the States? She was the biggest devil of the lot. Mikey was a great lad. From here he went and worked to the last day. He was a loss to us, and we begin in the world weak and poor as Job's cat. Where did John Martin go to? He wasn't inclined to do anything, a poor loafer. So, that's our history. Now for you. We worked hard, and when the bank was paid, up goes a new house that stuck us for a bit again. But we would pull out of any difficulty. What would we do if we didn't build? Nothing to be got now, owing to the war. Anyway, it would take thousands, and where would we put the priest? They all coming home and bringing friends. It would be awkward and embarrassing. Eddie, the youngest, read your letter. It surprised him, and he says to John Dowling, wasn't that O'Connor a great man, the way he educated himself and worked to the top? They all wonder wondered what you thought of writing. I said, they all wondered why you thought of writing. I said, he was thinking of home and the old spot. If the war was over, you'll never be satisfied until you come. And Kenny's in Cork or Den's place wouldn't satisfy you, or the swankiest hotel in Dublin. You must visit the old spot and meet Willie Scanlon, McGeen Halloran, and all the old cronies. You have no one belonging to you here, but if I am in the land of the living, you can take potluck with us. I'd like to forget. Your picture arrived the day after the letter. You are Dan O'Connor in it, but not the burly Dan taken after your trip. And then she says she's having trouble with her throat, old age, you know. They were not cautioned of the dangers. No disinfectant, no anything. All that has changed now.
I'll be right behind you. You know, I hate this, Cal. You? No, she said the Irish were. Didn't know
Get in here. I want
No. Am I saying it wrong?
No. She's talking about the Queen of England.
The Queen of England.
You got 3 more minutes.
I saw a picture of a Barrett girl, your niece. She was a university graduate. Now you tell me you were a poor boy when you started out. So you were, and so were we when we started here. Dan, we were 1,400 pounds in debt in the bank, and a farm without implements or stock to start the world. But owing to the trouble in Ireland, Mick resigned a few years ago. Then he got his pension, but it was hard to lower the principal. The interest swept too much. We had 4 boys and 2 girls. They were brainy. The eldest, Sheila, at the age of 13, went from Ardrahan School to Tralee for an examination and swept a scholarship of £30 a year for 6 years. Now, let's see. That's about her family, so maybe I'll just skip that.
Yeah.
Then Jimmy comes next. We tried him in Tralee too. She says that didn't work, so after a while we kept him farming. And then Michael, and he got a scholarship and went to Brendan Seminary, Killarney, after 3 years. So this is about her family. Shall I skip? So yeah. Well, I'm worried because we have to get down there.
Yeah, we gotta get down there. You better go to the end.
Oh, now we have time.
So Tom then is in London in the midst of flying bombs, but he assures me there's no danger. He is an analyst in a big dairy, and with God's help, I expect him home for Christmas. Joan I kept at home. I need someone. Eddie, the youngest, got his scholarship when he was only 12. He's over in Listowel in the office at the railway station. Yes, John, Father Tom, and Mrs. Barry are all gone, and I'm the only one left, as thin as a match, but hardy and can work as good as ever I did. You have to keep the place in order, always in the alert for someone to call. You will be glad to hear the old settle beds are burned, unless an odd one. The Connors next door are still holding on to it. Mrs. Connor died last year. Thomas O isn't settled down, will hardly mind it now. He's getting ancient. And the Nolans, Jim, Mossy, Katie, and John are all together. Now, forgive scribble and mistakes. I dare not read it again, fearing I wouldn't send it at all, and you must get it. Mick Flaherty would have so much welcome for you as me, and all the young clan. I write pages this way to my own. It helps to keep them in touch with home, and they never drift or forget, and it makes them confide in me. I know what they're doing, but in my day, I dare not bring Mick Flaherty within an ass's screech of the house, or shots would be going in the air. I dare say I have used a lot of words or expressions that you've not heard with in a long time. Tell me more next time. Best wishes from all here, and last but not least, Diana.
Hey, Jen,
There's another letter.
give them the sequel. Take 5 minutes, just tell them the sequel, how you got the letter.
And she's talking about Katie Moriarty.
Right.
Right, Katie. No, Margaret.
Margaret, that's
Margaret Moriarty is her mother. Okay, Margaret is her mother. Very short.
Maybe she could be
What a lovely name.
Are you ready?
Sorry. It's very short. It's very long.
Dear Mother, just a note to tell you I left Grandma's yesterday. Den took me into Carmody's.
Right.
They were all looking for me. And tonight, Thursday, July 21st, to Aunt Mary's. Your mother could not get up but knew me and said my eyes and hair and cut of hair was like yours. She wants a lock of your hair and a clock from America. I'd advise not sending anything since Den doesn't think she'll last. Yesterday I went to Banna Strand Ballinghane in the jaunting car. I guess I saw everybody. I took Grandma a half pint of whiskey and a shot. When I get into Cork, I'll send her a nightdress, comfort, and Cheng with Aunt Mary. If I can induce Mary to go up. She seems to be waiting on Mary. She liked your beads and the kiddies' things. Hannah and Den do their very best for her, but due to 4 children, small quarters, and much labor, it is impossible to do as we would. Den will make it to Canada as soon as she's gone. He has beautiful children. Well, I'll write more next time. Love to both. Sis.
She died about 3 months later.
She did. Caring.
My dear aunt wanted me to make a little toast to her good friends in English. My grandmother gave me this one. Huh? Madeline? Real toast.
I told him to say,
Where did I get my cup?
damn the Margaret Thatcher, the whole left Northern Ireland.
Yeah, we're gonna toast this one to Aunt Madeline. Here's to the cocks that crewed America and woke the ladies of France, which was a cause of rebellion in Ireland and made the bloody Orangemen dance.
Yay!
Up the Republic and help those England and Thatcher.
All right, here we go.
I just say damn with Margaret Thatcher.
All right.
She called the Irish dumb. Your mother agreed with me. She called the Irish dumb. Damn her.
Let's go get him, all right?
Lincoln, thank you very much. That's it.
Got that on tape.
They're going great.
Long arms. And they gave you traffic control.
Okay, Mary. Good Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Bless the Lord, and these are gifts
Which we are about to receive from my bounty through Christ our Lord. Amen. Amen. And Madeline, let's bless all who are with us and who are not with us, but who are here in spirit.
Absolutely. Yes.
Amen.
And thank you to Madeline.
Great. Amen.
You don't want to get me beaten up. Why not? Fine,
Steve was not like that time.
pictures of these. We're going to